Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Garden Club of Jacksonville's Combined Circles program about monarch butterflies. We're so happy to have you all here with us today, both in person and on Zoom. My name is Denise Reagan. I'm the Executive Director of the Garden Club of Jacksonville, and I'm here with Erin Glick, who's our event ambassador, who's filling in for Damien on our camera and audio and Zoom responsibilities. I'd like to thank the Jessie Ball DuPont Fund for making programs like this possible through their generous grants. And now I'm going to introduce Jeanne Powell Hendricks. She's a master gardener. She's a member of the Wildflower Circle, and she does extensive work with the UF-IFAS Extension Office and on butterflies. And give me 1 second, I'm going to make sure that her audio is working. All right, Jeanne.
Okay, thank you. I'll introduce myself, give you a little bit of my background. I'm a gardener. I'm a master gardener. I've raised butterflies for about 14 years. I grew up on a farm we still own, and I just have such a personal relationship with Mother Nature. What I'd like to do today is take you through the life cycle of a monarch, and then I will fill in with some of the information that I have learned. The first thing I want to share with you is a book, the best resource I have found. It's Life Cycles of Butterflies by Judy Burris and Wayne Richards. These people live in Florida. These are all Florida butterflies. What's so neat is you'll be able to see the eggs, you'll be able to see the pupa, and you'll be able to see the adult. So when you go out in the garden and you go, what the heck was that? You will have an easy resource and you'll be able to locate them, whether you see an egg or whether you see one in the air. Our first slide is the egg. And monarchs lay a single egg on the underside of milkweed leaves. They may go to 4 or 5 different plants before they finish laying eggs. They might lay 10 on one plant and 50 on another, but they're usually laid just singly. Like here's the leaf, they'll lay an egg right here, and it's on the underneath part of the milkweed leaf. The egg hatches in 3 days. The first thing it does is it eats its shell. Then it starts to work on the milkweed. And for those of you who have had milkweed, who have had butterflies, have raised them, you know what I mean when I say they start to work on the milkweed. They will eat 2,700 times their weight in milkweed leaves. If human babies grew at that same rate, at the end of 2 weeks, we would be the size of a hippopotamus. They grow very, very quickly, and they're ravenous eaters. The caterpillar has 5 instars, and an instar is a period of growth. They do not have growth receptors in their skin. So after they have this huge feast nonstop on the milkweed eggs, their clothes are too tight and they have no way for that skin to stretch. So they then use a little bit of glue, stick their feet down and pop off that old skin. If you raise them in captivity and you have them in a pail or a cage of some kind, you'll see that these look like perhaps a tiny, tiny sock that somebody's rolled off. They have 5 different instars before they get to the pupa stage. If we could have, you've got where they're eating, and this is when they first start to pupate. They will go to the very top of the cage. They will go to a tall plant. They will go to the handle of your hoe. They will go to any high object that they choose, and they will start to form this pupa. They make a J shape first. And when they are in the process, they don't make a lot of movement. They simply hang there and you might think, oh, is he okay? Yeah, that's just how they do it. He then will pop off his last skin and show the pupa, which is underneath. It's kind of an urn shaped. And we'll go ahead to the pupa here, pupa or chrysalis. The chrysalis is kind of urn shaped. It's green and it has these tiny dots and lines of gold. The gold is said to be a light receptor, so the butterfly knows what time to emerge. My personal history is, in 14 years, I've had everyone emerge between 5 a.m. and 11 a.m. I had one guy that got up around 3, I don't know what happened, but for the most part, you can plan on them emerging between 5 and 11 a.m. As an adult, they don't need to eat for at least 24 hours. They don't need food or water for 24 hours. They are an adult for anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. They mate, lay eggs, and die. And then the cycle starts all over again. Monarchs have 4 to 5 hatches or generations per year. That depends on the weather and the food availability. Host plants, here's some definitions. A host plant is where they lay their eggs and eat very specific things. So the host plant for the monarch is the milkweed. They don't lay their eggs on anything else. That's all they do is milkweed. A nectar plant is what they eat or drink. And they will drink nectar from any plant that contains nectar. The only butterfly I know of that eats pollen is the state butterfly of Florida. It's a zebra longwing, and it will actually consume pollen, and it, because of that, it has different enzymes to break it down, and that particular butterfly will live maybe 19 weeks. So the nectar plant is what they eat or drink. Butterflies are tiny. They weigh the same as 2 paper clips. They can fly at a speed of 12 miles an hour. They can fly 3,000 miles from Canada to Mexico. Just for an example, I used to ride my bicycle in the mountains, and I could, on a good day, I could ride 19 miles an hour. They can go 12 miles an hour. They weigh the same as 2 rose petals. They can fly 3,000 miles. I can pedal 100 miles on a good day, and I'm pretty well worn out. They're miraculous little creatures. They see light differently than we do. They see ultraviolet and infrared rays that make our gardens look like runways at an airport. They're cold-blooded. They can't fly unless it's around 50 degrees. Antarctica is the only continent without butterflies. There are 763 kinds found in the US. They breathe through what is called a spiracle. There are little openings on their sides, so they breathe through that spiracle. And if you have a situation where you have heavy rain, or for any reason your caterpillars are in the water, realize that they can drown. They eat through something called a proboscis. When they first emerge, you can look at their profile and they will have this curved tube at their mouth. When they first emerge, that proboscis is in 2 pieces and it needs to fuse together. So Mother Nature prepared this. She fuses it together. It's like a zipper. It zips up and suddenly they have a tube that they can sip nectar through. The last hatch of the year are a bit different because these are the ones that are going to make the journey to their overwintering sites. We have 3 main flyways for butterflies. There's the Western Flyway, which is the West Coast in California. The Midwest flyway is the most heavily populated. And then we have an Eastern flyway, which is where we are. Usually the butterflies that we have in our gardens, they will overwinter in Southern Florida, maybe Cuba, maybe the islands. The Central Flyway overwinters in Oyamel, Mexico. It's the same place that they go every year. Excuse me. Scientists, it's interesting, and I love butterflies because science doesn't know everything about them, and scientists have tried to confuse them about migration. They're trying to mess up their little GPS system. So they've tried exposing them to different amounts of light, changing the angle of the sunlight they receive, the magnetic field. They've really tried to mess up their journey. And the butterfly emerges from the pupa and he goes, well, it's time to go south. And he just goes south. It doesn't matter how you try to confuse them, you can't. They go in a straight line. When they get to Mexico, they go into what we call a diapause, which is a form of hibernation. They will spend their time in a tree. They are kind of hibernating. They don't move around much. They might, if it's a real sunny day, they might go get some water and then go back to the same tree. But they conserve their energy because they actually don't eat for about 5 months. Before they head to Mexico or before they head on their migration, they eat, they absolutely stuff themselves with nectar so they'll have enough food to make that long voyage and to live through the winter in Mexico or Cuba, the islands, or in Southern California. They can fly 3,000 miles. If they make the trip from Canada down to Oyamel, Mexico, it's around 3,000 miles. They take advantage of air currents. Sometimes the eggs are found on oil rigs. They'll stop over there for a little bit of a rest. They're covered with scales so they can absorb the heat of the sun. And they need to be around 50 degrees, otherwise they cannot function, they can't move. What they do is they will align with the sun. You'll see them on a warm morning warming up, and they will open their wings so they're aligned to the sun. They'll kind of shiver so they can get a little more heat in them, and they will warm up quicker. Most scales, like the Monarch, they contain pigment. They're an orange, yellow, black situation. Blue butterfly scales and blue bird wings have what we call structural color. And it's a bit like a rainbow. It's a bit like oil on your driveway. It is light refraction. So if you were to look at a blue butterfly scale, you would find that the structural makeup was so that it would reflect only blue light. Just an odd phenomenon. Birds, blue, that are blue feathers, have the same thing. The structure of their feather is set up so it only reflects back blue light. About a day before they emerge from the pupa becomes clear, and you can start to see the wing markings through them. So I think you had a picture of that for the pupa. Yeah, you can see on those last, yeah. You can start to see the wings through there. You can start to see their markings. When they emerge from the pupa, they may emit a fluid called hemolymph, and it's a waste product from metamorphosis. Butterflies emerge the size they are, they don't grow. They need to dry their wings, they need to flap their wings, they need to be pretty quiet while they stay in one place and kind of flap their wings and get their wings fully extended. Otherwise, if the fluid does not get down, if the wings are not fully extended, they can't fly, and they'll be an easy target for some birds' lunch. Milkweed. There are about 250 different kinds of milkweed, and that's the only food they will eat. I saw a video of where they put a caterpillar in, like, let's refer to it as like the numbers on a clock. They put a caterpillar in the center, and then at each hour they put different food, thinking, oh, maybe they'll eat some of this or that. And the caterpillar kind of smelled around and went, and he just went right for the milkweed. That's the only thing that he will eat. Milkweed's been devastated by increased herbicide spraying in conjunction with corn and soybean crops that have been genetically engineered to tolerate direct spraying with herbicides. So in order to get rid of the milkweed that will clog up the apparatus you use to harvest the crop, they spray with a chemical that will kill insects. And that way they have, the seed is called Roundup Ready or chemically ready, and the seed will not be affected by this, but it will kill off the insects. And it's a great time saver for farmers. And obviously, as a farmer, you have to plant the crop, you have to harvest the crop, you have to sell the crop so you can feed the family and make the next payment on whatever. So it's an understandable sequence that a farmer has to do that. We finally understood what's killing off a lot of our monarchs, and many groups have become very, very conscious of what will happen if we don't have monarchs. They're kind of the canary in the coal mine. 87.5% of all food is pollinated by butterflies. It's also pollinated by bees, birds, and bats, but the majority of pollination is done by butterflies. So you can see why they're such an important part of the growth cycle of any plant. People have finally realized this. Manufacturers of chemicals have realized this, and one major manufacturer has pledged $4 million, to creating a flyway in the Midwest from Canada all the way down to Texas. What they're doing is that they're planting host plants and nectar plants for butterflies, and they're trying to increase their numbers because they understand how very important they are. Transportation, energy companies, they're planning habitat on potential millions of acres of right-of-way. They're starting to mow the roads less often, and that will allow the flowers to be there. It will allow the butterfly to have food for a little bit longer period of time. So everyone's kind of getting in tune with this. One of my resources is called Monarch Watch, and it's through the University of Kansas. Chip Taylor is in charge of this, and if you just Google it, you'll find a world of information. The way that we learn about butterflies is what he calls citizen scientists. It's been all of us like you and me that love butterflies, go out in our garden and go, well, I wonder what this does. We've been able to find a place to report back our findings, and he compiles those and then has results of, is this working or is this not working? Another interesting thing that they're doing is a tagging program that I've participated in for the last several years. And you send to Monarch Watch, you buy these little tags, they're about the size of a pencil eraser. And I think you had a great picture, there we go, of tagging. And you affix that. Okay, here's my butterfly, and he's going this way. Here's his hind wing, and you affix it to his hind wing on the outside. That way, when he arrives at his destination, his overwintering site, you've kind of sent him off with a license plate. You know where he came from, what he ate, when he left, because we record all of this and then send it back to the University of Kansas. It was fun because I tag all of my butterflies. I tagged the last half. And I was out in the yard playing badminton with my granddaughter, and the monarchs are trying to help. And it was really fun because we could spot the monarchs that we'd tagged. We could see their tags from the backyard. They were flying so low. One of the culprits, one of the enemies, let's say, of butterflies, and one of the enemies of milkweed is a parasitic protozoa. And it is named Ophrocystis electrosara. It's a protozoan parasite. And what happens is it lives on milkweed. Okay, so here's my milkweed leaf. And the female butterfly comes in and she brings her abdomen up and she lays an egg. And then she goes to the next leaf and lays another egg and another egg. Well, what happens is if this parasitic protozoa is on your milkweed, that egg will hatch, he will eat his shell, and then he'll start eating this milkweed that's contaminated. The end result is the caterpillar does not go through the usual instars. Many times they will die along the way at the first or second instar. Many times they will actually go ahead and form a pupa, but they will either die in the pupa or they will emerge with their wings terribly deformed. These butterflies cannot fly and they will simply die or they'll be lunch for somebody. So in that respect, we're asking everyone to take their tropical milkweed and cut it back every year, maybe October, November, cut it back to where it's 5 or 6 inches from the ground, pick up all your cuttings, put them in a bag, and throw them away. Because more than likely that contains the parasitic protozoa that's going to kill or injure your butterflies. Then let your milkweed leaf out again, grow a new plant, and the odds of it having that OE protozoa are much slimmer at that point. I have found that there are, as I said, there are about 250 different kinds of milkweed, and the tropical milkweed is the one sold most in big box stores. It's readily available, it's cheap, it's like $5 or $6. I bought them for years, I didn't know there was a difference. There's another milkweed, it's called a giant milkweed, and it's tall. Mine will get bigger than me. And it has leaves that are like rubber plants, they're huge. And they are not as susceptible to this protozoa as the tropical milkweed is. So if you, instead of buying 5 of the $5 ones that are more than likely going to have this OE protozoa, buy one of the giant milkweeds, which might be $30 or more, but buy that one and you'll have enough for all of your butterflies for the summer. The leaves are huge and you're providing them with this absolute banquet. Another thing that I do is if, let's say I'm expecting a hurricane, God forbid, but let's say I'm expecting a hurricane and I'm going to bring all of my caterpillars in the house. I will then take some leaves, I will freeze them, and that way I have emergency food for my butterflies. Just in talking with people today, people have said, oh, my neighbor called and she has all these caterpillars and she doesn't have any milkweed. It's a common problem. So if you kind of stockpile your milkweed, throw it in the freezer, and it's not perfect, but it's better than nothing because that's all that they're going to eat. The propagation. Once you've spent $30 on a milkweed, you're going to really guard this thing. And it's so easy to propagate. Our garden club has plant sales every year. And I've taken this one plant, which I've had for 3 years, that I think I paid $30 for, and at the time I thought I was making a mistake. But this large plant can easily be propagated. The best way to propagate is to take a cutting, maybe 6, maybe 8 inches long, take most of the leaves off, and dip about 1.5 inches of the stem, dip it in water, and then dip that same 1.5 inches in a rooting hormone like Rutone. And then make a hole in your dirt, excuse me, make a hole in the dirt with a pin. That way you won't knock off the rooting medium when you put it down in there to plant it. And then just tap the dirt around the cutting. You can also propagate them in water. I did this on a huge scale and discovered it was pretty impossible. I had buckets and buckets of cuttings, and I had to change the water every other day, and that was a bit of a daunting task. So if you're just going to root a few, put them in the water and root them. It's very easy. If you're going to root quite a few, then do it with the propagation system that involves dipping them in Rutone, and they grow very easily that way. That particular milkweed does not seem to harbor this OE protozoa. So it's a very, very safe thing to have in your yard, and you know that you've provided them with food for years to come. I think we had a few questions.
Yeah, so that was fascinating. And I think everybody is really eager to do their own raising of monarch butterflies. And so do you have any suggestions for ways to do that? Different kinds of materials that you can use to raise them on your own?
Raise them on your own. It's a good question. Yes, I started out with a 5-gallon pail from the hardware store. And then I bought a hunk of nylon net at the fabric store. And then I bought a length of elastic. You'll probably have $6 invested in this. And you will take your 5-gallon pail, put your net over the top of it, secure it into place with that elastic, and that way you can easily take the lid off, and you can then tend to the caterpillars that are down in this pail. I like to put a piece of paper towel in the very bottom of the pail, and I like to go out, and once I see the egg on the leaf, I bring the egg and the leaf both in. Statistically, only 1 out of 100 butterflies live in the wild. I don't like to take chances, so if I go out every day and scout for eggs, and then I bring them in, put them on this paper towel, and because of the fact, remember how I told you they eat so much? Well, get ready, they also poop a lot. It's called frass, if you want to be technical, but they do make kind of a mess, so the paper towel will help you. So I have a piece of paper towel in the bottom of my pail, and I have a leaf with an egg on it, and I have 6 leaves with eggs on it. And as these start to hatch, then I can physically take my caterpillar, put him in another cage while I clean out the bucket that he's in. Throw all the frass away, throw the paper towel away, start with clean paper towel, and then put your caterpillars back in there, and then give them some more food. You may want to do that every day. And it's a bit labor intensive, but that's the only way you can do it. Otherwise, bacteria grows and you won't have any butterflies. So I've done it with the pail. There are many websites where you can buy actual butterfly cages, and I've graduated up to those. They're a net enclosure, come in many different sizes, and if you simply type in butterfly cage, Google that, you will find a million different resources where you can get the cage, you can get eggs, you can get plants. But the cages are very, very nice because they're lightweight and they're very portable. And I have about 4 of these on my back porch. So the same principle, I just put a paper towel in the bottom, a dry paper towel, and that way it'll help me. It's kind of like, you ever had a parakeet and you had to clean out the bird cage? You're glad you put a newspaper there. So put the paper towel down, put your leaves with the eggs or the caterpillars on there, let them live within the cage. When it is time for them to pupate, they will go to the top of the cage, they'll form that J, and they'll form a pupa. That's called the last of the 5 instars. So they will form the J shape, and then they start to form this beautiful green urn-shaped pupa. They'll be in that stage for anywhere from 10 to 14 days. If the weather's cool, it will take longer. On many occasions, I've had pupa that I've thought, I just have to throw them out. They must not be any good. Give them an extra day or 2 because they might surprise you. They might just be cold, or for whatever reason, they just have not emerged as quickly. So either 5-gallon pail or buy a butterfly cage. Either way is very portable and it's very easy to do at home. And I really suggest getting your kids involved in this. I've done classes for 4-H, for Girl Scouts, for kids, and they get so wrapped up in this. They personally know these butterflies. They personally know the caterpillars. They name them, they take good care of them, and they're very, very willing to clean out the poop every couple of days because they have such a vested interest. And it's a pet that you can get, we'll call it a pet, for your kids with like a $10 investment. So it's a really easy way to get them into the responsibility of caring for a pet. It's an easy way to have something new for them to grow. Do we have any other questions?
Yes, so that was fascinating. How long do monarch butterflies live?
They ordinarily live for 2 to 4 weeks. A lot of it's dependent on the time of year, and the amount of sun, the availability of food. One thing I have found is that concerning the milkweed leaves, they grow, well, they prefer young tender leaves. So if you trim off the big old tough leaves and leave them some young tender leaves, they tend to be happier, healthier, and grow faster. So about 2 to 4 weeks is about it. The zebra longwing is the only one I know of that is different. It can live for about 19 weeks because it's the one that eats pollen, and it has enzymes that will digest the pollen. So it has a little bit longer lifespan.
So Jeanne, can you tell us how to tell the difference between a male and a female butterfly?
Yeah, I surely can. And I think that there were a couple of slides that provided us that. This is a great way to impress your friends because there'll be a lull of conversation and you want everybody to know how smart you are, so you have something nobody else will know. You can say, hey, you know how to tell the difference between a male and a female monarch? And they'll go, no. The female, all of the black lines on the lower wing are just lines. And there's a picture of the female. They're just very definite. They're very parallel lines. And now we'll take a look at a male. And on the lower wing, you see that little bitty dot. It almost looks like an ink spot. And that is actually a pouch. It is their pheromones. And that's how you can tell the difference between a girl and a boy. Another thing you can tell is if you have butterflies that are down on the ground getting in the water, they refer to it as puddling. And more than likely that is the male of any butterfly species that's getting in the water puddling because they need those minerals to form the sex hormones to reproduce.
That's fascinating. And yeah, that's something we can all impress our friends with, that incredible knowledge there. So can you tell us, if you're just getting started, like what are your top 3 things like that you need to do to make this, this hobby something that, they can actually be successful doing?
To make it work? Well, they need a house and they need some food and you need to clean their house every so often. So when you first get started, go out to your milkweed plant, no matter what variety, and turn the leaves over and look on the back. And you will be so stunned that they're eggs. They're actually eggs. And monarch eggs are cool. They're kind of a creamy white and they stand on end like that. In this book, it'll show you all the different eggs. I just did a program for some 4-H kids and we did painted ladies. And painted lady eggs are so cool because they look like garbage can lids. They're all hooped around the edge and they lay them all in one big pile. So go out and start exploring your plants and looking for eggs. A lot of the Gulf fritillaries and zebra longwings use passion vine for their food and their nectar source. And passion vine, as you would imagine, has vines, tendrils, and they will lay their eggs out on those tendrils because they know that the local lizards cannot go out on that tendril and eat their eggs. So that's where you'll be most apt to find them.
That is so, I'm so motivated to get out and try this. And as you know, the monarchs are endangered in many ways. And you talked about some of the ways that different groups are trying to help them. Can you give us kind of your last, final statement about what we can do to help the monarchs and all butterflies?
I think the big thing that we can do is by learning about them, learning about butterflies in general, we can raise our awareness. I have talked to people who now raise butterflies like I do, who said, I used to go out and kill those worms. I didn't know what they were. Raise everyone's awareness. Get your kids involved. They are so into this kind of thing. And just raise the awareness, be aware of where you use Roundup or, just be aware of where you use pesticides, be aware of anything that can be wind drift, only spray, and I still use Roundup, I still use pesticides because we still have pests, but use them on a quiet day and use them when it's very, very close. Put your sprayer very, very close to the ground so you don't have any drift. But I think that just by raising awareness, look online, check out the websites for Monarch Watch. There is another one, it's called Monarch Joint Venture, and that's from Minnesota. And they have a lot of information on the butterflies that live in Canada. So there's a whole different set of rules up there, but there is so much information on the internet. Get involved, try it. Don't be afraid to try it because 1 in 100 makes it in the wild. You don't really have anything to lose. So I raised butterflies for a lot of years and I did so many things wrong. Don't be afraid of doing them wrong. You will keep on learning and you'll learn how to do them right. You'll figure them out. You'll gain more resources. You'll get more information. So just go ahead and jump in. It's just such an interesting subject. I think once you get started, you won't need any coaching to continue your journey with the butterflies.
Well, Jeanne, I can't thank you enough. I think everybody here was really inspired. I'm inspired, and I hope everybody uses this information and at least does their part to help out the monarch butterflies. We'll also be sharing some of the resources that you provided on our blog, and I encourage everybody to go and learn more about it. I'm going to now just share a couple of things that are going on at the garden club. Here we go. If you're not a member of the garden club, why aren't you a member of the garden club? You really should take us up on it. It's a great time to join. We have lots of programs like this and others where you get either free or very steeply discounted entrance to great information like this. So look us up on gardenclubjax.org and become a member. We have a few programs coming up that I want to tell you about. One is the latest in our Horticulture Corner series called Vertical Gardening. It's with Joanne Krestel, who has become a real great resource for learning about this kind of vertical gardening, and you don't need much space to do it. You can do it on just a small piece of patio and grow a lot of great food right in your in a very tiny space. We also have a couple of programs coming up about flower shows. One is Designing the Perfect Table. Laura Haley is going to share with us as a longtime Garden Club member and educator and presenter and expert floral designer. She was our Designer of Distinction in 2020, and she's going to show you how you can design the perfect table using flowers and all sorts of fun things. She's also an expert at contemporary designs, and that program is going to feature some of her really fantastically odd and beautiful designs. So it's called Contemporary Designs, and you can look for that also on our website. And our Designer Distinction in 2021 is Ashley Woodson Bailey. She is a local talent, but with a national and really international reputation. And she is not only a floral designer, but she photographs her work and then turns it into amazing things like fabric and wallpaper and many other products. And she's going to take you through that process of designing and arranging beautiful creations and then photographing them and turning them into all these wonderful items. So check out that. That's in May this year. So go to gardenclubjax.org to see how you can register for each of these programs. Please take our survey. It's very important that you help us become better, and your input definitely improves our program. So thank you for taking our survey. We will give that to everybody afterward. Once again, I thank the Jessie Ball DuPont Fund for making programs like this possible. And I want to thank Jeanne once again. I want to thank everybody here, both in person and on Zoom. And I want to thank my colleague, Erin Glick, for being my partner today. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.